Hello, professionals. My name is Rico Aladdin, and I am the founder of Professional Lunch. Today, we have the city of Morehead mayor here in the studio for a very special professional lunch. You allow me to call you Shelly? So, Shelly,
Yes,
welcome to
yes.
the show.
Thank you, Rico. I'm really excited to be here. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am originally from Minot,
Okay.
North Dakota, and I came down here in 1990 to go to college at what was called Morehead State University at the time when I went, now Minnesota State University Morehead. And then I graduated from college in 1993 with my bachelor's degree in legal assistant studies and started working and met my husband,
Okay.
who is from Morehead. So he's a spud. Um, and then we got married, and I have two kids now, one of who goes to NDSU here and will be graduating in December.
Okay.
And yeah, and have been involved in city government now for going on my fifth year.
Wow, wonderful. The reason why we have this show is to talk to professionals who are, accomplished doing great things in the community and to give college students, early career professionals, a window into their professional lives. So tell me a bit about your background. How did you get started? And now you are, mayor of Morehead, a very good
Yeah.
city, great city,
Yeah.
and you just got reelected. Congratulations again.
Thank you. Thank
Tell
you.
me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so, my background, I have worked in the criminal justice community for almost 30 years. So I graduated from MSUM in 1993, like I said, with my paralegal studies.
Okay.
And soon after, I became the paralegal for the city prosecutor's office in Morehead, actually.
Okay.
And at the same time, I had been volunteering as an advocate for the Rape and Abuse Crisis Center and
Okay.
and taking the at the time, back in the day, we had pagers. It wasn't a cell phone, so it was a pager, and we had to find a landline phone to, call the person who was seeking assistance on the other end. And so would meet victims of sexual assault at the emergency rooms or go and meet with domestic violence victims and help them get into the shelter. So I did that for about a year and a half, and then a position opened up at the Rape and Abuse Crisis Center as a criminal justice advocate. And so what a criminal justice advocate does is will meet with the domestic violence or sexual assault victims and kind of explain the court process. And I also would assist victims in getting protection orders, so helping them fill out the paperwork, accompanying them to court, doing the filings for them. So I did that for a number of years also. And that's about this time too when I had gotten married, and then I went and worked at the prosecutor's office. And so when you're working for a nonprofit organization like the Rape and Abuse Crisis Center, there's different confidentiality parameters that are in place. And then you move to a government entity, so working in the prosecutor's office. So then you're more under the umbrella of a prosecutor, and you're a victim advocate in the prosecutor's office. So that would allow you, or what I was doing at the time, to also work with victims of property crimes, of homicides, child sexual abuse, so kind of more than just domestic violence, sexual assault victims. So I've kind of done that type of work, providing advocacy to victims in the criminal justice system for, like I said, almost 30 years. And about 8 or 9 years ago, when I was the director of victim services in the county attorney's office in Clay County, we had the opportunity to apply for a federal grant to focus on victims of elder abuse. And so we were the recipients of that grant, and it really opened a passion for me to provide assistance to those victims of crimes. And so I've been really focused on elder abuse work and delivering curriculum to law enforcement on how to identify and investigate those cases, and working with groups of people, multidisciplinary teams, where they bring complex cases of elder abuse to the team, and then we kind of assess and strategize on how to best work with that victim, because one, maybe it's law enforcement, and maybe they don't have the tools or the resources to assist that person, but maybe a domestic violence program would, or assisted living, or maybe a medical provider, or adult protection services. So it's a number of different professionals that come together on a monthly basis to talk about the cases. So I manage a federal grant doing that. Also provide a lot of training across the state of Minnesota. Also provide a lot of training across the United States, and in the early 2000s did a lot of training across the United States and internationally on how to respond to cases of domestic violence and sexual assault. So bringing all of that forward, working with a lot of different people, working with a lot of different communities, a lot of different backgrounds, I think that provided me with kind of the skill set that I was able to transition that into working for the city government. And I was able to run because then my kids were transitioning out of the home, and I finally had time to run for public office. And so that's kind of what I've been focused on
Wow.
the last 5 years.
My goodness, this is, I admire people who are professionals who serve others, especially those who need it the most. I really admire that. So I think we're gonna focus on that a little bit more
Okay.
because it's simply, I always say that on the show that as professionals we are called to serve, and there are some population who need your service, our service as professionals the most. So you spent 30 years doing that.
I have them.
What have you learned during those years?
Gosh, you know what? No one's ever really asked me that. I think that it's all these building blocks. I started, and it all goes back to, I think about the training that I got when I just first became an advocate for the Rape and Abuse Crisis Center, learning to listen and learning to be present in a conversation and to acknowledge what somebody tells you and to meet a person where they're at. And if they're from a different background than I am, to be aware of and practice cultural humility. I get really uncomfortable with the words cultural competency because I don't feel that I will ever be truly competent in somebody else's shoes. So that's really important to me to learn and understand and have that cultural humility. And so something that I've learned is to really listen to folks. And I can't always maybe give them what they're looking for. And that's one thing I learned working with victims in the criminal justice system. Oftentimes, particularly in cases where a homicide or a death has occurred, or if there's been some real traumatic sexual abuse or domestic violence, it's really hard to make that person whole again. They're never going to be the same person they were before that incident of violence occurred. And they may not ever get the answers that they're seeking from whoever was a perpetrator. But at least having the knowledge of what is going to come and what is going to happen in the criminal justice system, I think eases some anxiety. So I think listening and then providing information and knowledge, because when you have the information and knowledge, then you can decide, what you're going to do with that information and knowledge. Again, it might not always be the definitive answer that you want, but I think that, or my experience has been that when you at least have an understanding of why decisions are made, it does help. It helps, and people develop a better understanding, I guess. So, yeah.
So, from being the advocate for people who have been abused to being mayor, because we have to cover both because they are both part of your professional life. So walk me through, how did you go from being the advocate to becoming the mayor of Moorhead?
Right. So, when I was kind of experiencing somewhat of the empty nest syndrome. So my oldest had graduated from high school and he had moved on into starting to work on his adult life. My daughter, I think, was a junior in high school and she had her driver's license. So she was taking herself to where she needed to go. And I had a lot of extra time. And I think I just kind of have service to my community. It's kind of in my DNA. It's something that I've kind of learned through watching other people in my family. They have just given a lot, and it's just kind of an expected part of my family and my life that you give back to your community in whatever way and in whatever form you're able to. And so government and in representing citizens has always been something that intrigued me. And so I just started kind of going to some of the meetings, and thought maybe I could do this. But it took a lot of encouragement because it was intimidating. And looking back now, I don't really know why I was so intimidated, but I was. But after a lot of encouragement, I decided to file to run for city council. And it took a lot of time, and I worked that entire spring and summer and fall and did as much as I could to get out into the ward that I live in. So in the city of Moorhead, we're divided into like 4 different areas in our city, and we call them wards. And so I was living in Ward 2, and so I knocked on every single door in Ward 2 and told them who I was and that I wanted to represent them. And I was fortunate enough to win the city council election. And I was very thrilled and excited and intimidated and nervous. And then 2 years into serving on city council, our mayor was appointed to a judgeship, and he had served over half of his term. And so we needed to appoint somebody from the current serving council members. And my fellow council members appointed me to fill out the remainder of the mayor term. And so that was it was a little under 2 years that I served in that mayor role. And then last summer I said, okay, I guess I can do this. And I'm really enjoying doing this. And I'm enjoying representing my community and learning all the things that you get to learn when you're the mayor of a city. And so I chose to run for mayor. So this is technically the first time I've been elected mayor, even though I served 2 years.
Well, quite an opportunity, right?
Yes, it really is. I don't know that I would have considered running for mayor had I not been appointed into the position.
Okay.
Because it's daunting a little bit. And again, I was intimidated, but now that I've been in the role, the people that are around you in city staff, all of our, from the city manager down and the executive leadership team, they don't expect you to know everything. And I don't think citizens expect me to know everything. I think the expectation is, though, I'm going to ask questions, which I do. I don't have any problems asking questions. And if I don't know the answer, I'm going to find it.
Yeah.
Which is not unlike what I did as an advocate. If I didn't know the answer, I asked questions and I found the answer and I relayed that back to the person who is asking. So it's been a little surprising to me how transferable the skills I have as an advocate really provide me some of those leadership skills that I need to be mayor.
Wow, wonderful. You mentioned earlier that you have a lot of encouragement. Do you have a mentor?
I don't think I have just one mentor. I think that I have a lot of mentors in different facets of my life.
Okay.
And I think that there might be one person maybe that you go to frequently in your professional world, and maybe in your private life there might be somebody, and maybe in your faith community there's yet another person that you go to, and so I have a kind of a family, I would say, of mentors that I go to depending on what type of mentoring I might be needing.
That's wonderful, because I think that's going to be my goal now, to have a family of mentors that I can go to. I have a few, but I think family of mentors sounds really, really, really cool. Now, tell me, what does a mayor do?
Well, it's every day is different.
Okay.
Every single day is different. And the mayor position is not full-time, which is surprising to a lot of people.
To me too. Tell me a little bit about that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is intended to be a part-time position.
Really?
However, on average, I spend between 20 to 30 to 35 hours, depending on the week, on mayoral responsibilities.
Wow.
And so I get a number of emails for folks who just are interested in learning about the city of Moorhead, or people who just, like you, reached out to
Yeah.
learn about maybe me and what we do in the city of Moorhead. There's a lot of contracts that I have to sign. It's also, that was one thing too. I have to sign a lot of forms,
Yeah.
a lot of forms. You are the representative for your city. So I get asked to speak at a lot of events, and I get asked to sit down and visit with people a lot. I think that they believe I have a lot more power than I do. We have, in the city of Moorhead, we have a manager form of government, meaning that as the mayor, I'm the representative, but really all of the operations in the city is really run by our city manager. But the city manager and I really work together as a team, and I can help kind of direct, and I help kind of lead the council, because I don't even have a vote when we come to city council meetings. I run the meetings, but I don't have a vote. The only time I do is if there's a tie and then I'm the tiebreaker, or if I think that what they're doing is just completely, off the wall or crazy, which this has not happened, but I can veto
Okay.
their vote, and then they can re-vote, and then I believe it has to be a unanimous decision. So,
Okay.
but really, it's being the representative of the city. It's being the face of the city, trying to bring people to our community and really brag about our community. So it's an easy job in that sense, that I just get to talk about the great people that live, work, and play in the community of Moorhead. And I have a lot of pride for the community I've chosen as my home.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. So we're gonna take a short break here. When we come back, we'll talk to the mayor about some of the things that she loves about her job. We'll be right back. We are back. We are at the Bias and Information Network studio at NDSU. My guest today is Mayor Shelley Carlson. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Now we're going to talk about some of the things that you love about your professional life. You are a mayor and also you have another job. So tell me, as a mayor, what is your favorite part of your job?
I think the favorite part is getting to meet as many people as I do, and just looking at the diversity that we have in the city of Moorhead. We have so many unique individuals that live and work and play in the city of Moorhead, and a number of them have been able to reach out. I shouldn't even say been able. Anybody can reach out to ask to meet with me and explain a little bit more about maybe their organization or what they're doing in the community. And when I first became mayor, so many people reached out, and so I have developed such phenomenal relationships with a multitude of people in the community. And I also like being part of moving our community forward to doing really great things as far as redevelopment in our community and incorporating kind of new priorities within our community. We have a lot of interest around sustainability. So much so that we have a full-time sustainability coordinator in the city of Moorhead, and looking at incorporating diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how does that get infused within city policies, and making sure that we're expanding and diversifying our workforce, just even within city staff. So those are really probably the two things that I enjoy the most.
Yes.
And the third thing would be working with the council and the city staff.
Oh.
We have 280 people that are working for the city of Moorhead that are absolutely phenomenal. They're just every day come to work, try to do things to make our city better.
Wow, wonderful. So what are some of the big plans that you have? Because you just got elected for a new term.
Yeah.
So what are some of the plans that you have for the city?
Well, a lot of this isn't just my own personal agenda, and I never came to council or ran on any personal agenda. A lot of this comes through in our strategic plan that was developed for the city of Moorhead, which involved a lot of community input, and it involved a lot of input from our staff and our leadership also. And really what came out of our strategic plan and looking at our comprehensive plan is redeveloping, particularly our downtown. So that is something that we're looking at, creating or recreating, I should say, downtown Moorhead, because several decades ago it was kind of torn down, and so we don't really have a downtown, a place for people to go and gather. So we're looking at doing that, and then just this past November, we also got a vote that we can use a local option sales tax to build a new community center and a library. So
Wow.
that is going to be very, very exciting. And looking at ways to, be sustainable in our community. Looking at just simple things like using different bags in order to put grass clippings in.
Mhm.
And the bags then are more biodegradable so that they don't get caught up in our recycling equipment and have to be taken out by hand, and even small things like that versus the big things like redevelopment.
Wow. Tell me a little about the library and the community center because
Yes.
that's really gets my attention.
That is very exciting. So our current library is about 50 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and it is in a building that is completely falling apart. Um, and we also need a community center. We don't have a community center in the city of Moorhead. And so it really made sense to combine the two of them, because a library is a community center. It's a place where people go to gather. It's a place where people go to maybe research for jobs. It's libraries are really the great equalizer in any community. And then you add components of health and wellness. So looking at putting a walking track in place, an indoor playground area, a coffee shop, a maker space, gathering rooms that some of our smaller nonprofits who maybe don't have some of the funding, that they can reserve a room so that they can have board meetings, so that they can have gathering space for them. So incorporating all of that, and like I said, we got the vote in November, and the request for proposals and request for qualifications is actually going to be coming before the council tonight. So if that gets approved, then hopefully we'll be getting a lot of interest from developers and builders who want to build this legacy project in Moorhead.
Wow, wonderful. Well, I hope that gets approved tonight.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too.
Yes. So let's circle back to your other job. Besides the mayor. So tell me a little bit about some of the things that you love about helping people, the advocacy work that you do.
I think what I enjoy is making sure that somebody who has been hurt, they get the help and the resources that they need so that they can heal as best as they can, and that there's some justice that's given. And I think that we have to redefine what success means or what justice means. It doesn't always necessarily mean that somebody's been convicted of a crime and sent to prison. Maybe it just means that for an older person, they're not being financially exploited any further, or now they are going to be able to live out the rest of their life in dignity. And I guess maybe that's the key word, is making sure that victims have that dignity that they can recapture for themselves, and that they don't feel like they're that victim anymore, that they're a survivor.
Wow. So what is one thing you wish people knew about you in doing this work, that you're doing both with advocacy and as a mayor?
Um, Probably that I don't take life too seriously, even with the role that I have and the job that I have. It's a
Yeah.
very serious profession, but I always try to find light and humor wherever I go, because, and I've learned that really from the individuals that I've worked with, that somehow they're always able to find light and positivity and humor, and they provide people with grace. And they are people that I wouldn't expect would do those things. And so if they're able to do it, I certainly should be able to do it too.
Yes.
And so I try to do that everywhere I go. And even meeting you, I mean, the positivity that you bring to the world
Thank
it's very, it's capturing.
Very good, very good. Thank you. So, besides being the mayor, elected the mayor right now, what other accomplishments that you want people to know about you?
Other things I want people to,
Well, so what is besides being the mayor? Being a mayor is a very big thing to accomplish. So, what other accomplishments would you like to share?
mm, It's probably not, I'm not going to get a huge plaque or award or anything, but really truly being I'm a mom, trying to pass on, good values to the next generation and being a mom
Wow.
to my kids.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, mayors are people who visit a community for a period of time. And there were, dozens of mayors before me. There'll be
Mhm.
dozens of mayors after me.
Mhm.
And, I don't think it's as important for people to remember my name
Mhm.
as it is for people to know that there were a group of people who worked really hard to accomplish things during the period of time that maybe I was a mayor. But I look at people at their end of life, and at end of life, it's not so much about the awards and accomplishments and the certificates that you get to put on a wall, but it's really how you made people feel, and particularly the people that are close to you, your friends and your family.
Wow.
And so, I try to be the best person I am to those people and to other people I meet. But think I think that's maybe what maybe people don't necessarily know about
Mhm.
me, that is really the most important thing. And so being a mayor is really making that community so other people can bring their friends and family to a community where they can,
Yeah.
feel loved and valued and grow and just be the best person that they can be.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. On that note, like I said before, sometimes it's hard to go to break when the conversation is so good. So we're gonna take a short break here. When we come back, we're gonna talk about some of the challenges that Mayor Shelley faced in her line of work. We will be right back. We are back. We are at the Baton Information Network Studio at NDSU. My guest today is Shelley Carlson. Shelley is the mayor of Mohead. Welcome back, Shelley.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're much welcome. Now we're gonna talk about. I say that every time. This is my favorite part of the conversation. It's talking about the challenges.
Oh,
Now, what are some
yes.
of the most pressing challenges that you face as the mayor of Morehead?
Hmm. I think the challenge with government, and I think that this is something that, especially from citizens looking in,
Mhm.
I think there's a frustration of how long things take
Wow.
in government,
Mhm.
and it does, and takes long intentionally to make sure that you know we are using taxpayer dollars to do all of the things that we do in city government. So we should take time and make sure that we're getting all of the information and doing it the right way and making sure that the public is aware of what we're doing. And so that's why it takes longer than if it was just a private business and one person just gets to decide this is what we're doing.
Mhm.
A president of an organization can do that,
Yeah.
and you can't do that as city government. So I think it's a challenge how long things maybe take to come to fruition
Mhm.
in government. And the other challenge is getting that information out to citizens because, as somebody who's in communications,
Mhm.
it's really hard to disseminate information out to 45,000 different people. Uh, Maybe some of our older generation doesn't necessarily go on social media,
Mhm.
and it might be newspapers. Well, now newspapers, they don't come out every single day like they used to. And which newspaper do they read? And
Mhm.
does it get on the radio, and which radio station? And it's hard to make sure that all of the information is getting out there, and there's so much information. So I think those are maybe just a couple of the really big challenges
Mhm.
that I see in government.
Okay. So, as the mayor, how do you deal with difficult situation that you might face in the community?
Difficult
Yeah.
situations. Well, I think you have to be willing to sit down and listen.
Mhm.
Um, I think a lot of times, kind of, like we talked about earlier, listening is really key in acknowledging the frustration that people might be feeling.
Mhm.
But then I've also found that the person might not have all of the information. So one that is real prevalent right now,
Mhm.
is snow removal.
Yes.
We have a lot of people that get frustrated by the fact that maybe their street hasn't gotten plowed, or why when the snowplow comes we have this kind of lump of snow that's at the end of my driveway, and why can't we have these types of vehicles in public works to be able to not have them. Well, we have 11,500 driveways in the city of Moorhead. And when we get a big snowfall, it takes up to 25 hours to completely clear the roads.
Wow.
And you have to clear emergency roads. So there's a process on how we do it, and providing information on how expensive the equipment is, where you can scrape a driveway, then pull it up and then scrape the driveway, and where does all that snow go, and providing them with that information so that they understand why decisions are made. I think that also alleviates a lot of frustration. And sometimes people do have frustrations, and we have messed up. Every once in a while a mailbox is hit, and so we have to fix that. We own that. Like, there are humans, and humans make errors, and I am more than happy to make sure that those things get fixed. But then we apologize, and hopefully we can both move on.
Yes, absolutely.
So
Absolutely. So, what is the, we'll talk a little bit about, your advocacy work, also challenges in that. But what is the least favorite part of being a mayor?
It's hard to tell people no. There are a lot of individuals who are representing different organizations, or individuals that come with really good ideas. But, the city government isn't the be all end all to everybody. We're not the solution to everyone's problems. And to communicate that to somebody, I know, can be really disappointing, and that's really, really hard. Or if an individual comes with a really great idea, but it's maybe just something that isn't necessarily in the wheelhouse of what a city government does, or it's just an idea that's just, really, really too expensive, and we can't incorporate it into the city budget. That is not fun. Disappointing people in that way. It's not to say that those things couldn't come to fruition sometime in the future, but it's just not something that maybe would be happening right now. So that's hard. That's hard to disappoint people, or if the information, they don't like the way something's done in the city, and, for whatever reason, rules, regulations, statutes, ordinances, we can't necessarily change some of those things, and that's disappointing. So that's never fun.
Yes, you're right. So what about being an advocate for, the sexually abused people? Can you tell me one or two challenges that you face along the 30 years you've done this?
I think the criminal justice system is a challenge. The way sometimes our laws are written, I said earlier that we have to redefine what success is, because sometimes success doesn't always mean convicting somebody and sending somebody to prison. Sometimes that's really hard for clients, and I don't have the answers on how to make our criminal justice system better. Or I shouldn't say better. I mean, there's definitely ways, and people working in the criminal justice system are continually seeking ways to improve it. But to have it be something that is so accessible for everybody, there's just a lot of challenges involved with sometimes the way laws are written, and how you prove something beyond a reasonable doubt. So those are challenges, and of course funding. There's never enough money to do the things that we know that need to get done.
Okay, so how do you, talk about funding? I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's, how do you deal with budget cuts as the mayor of the city, or something like that, a situation like that?
Fortunately, since I've been serving, we haven't had that challenge. Our city manager really sits down with the executive leadership team from each department, and they really work together on the budget. And so when the budget gets put together, then it gets presented to myself and council members, and then we will look at, you know, how big we want to expand the budget for that year, or if we want to, you know, just expand it a little bit or keep it the same, whatever that might involve. But there always has to be continual improvements,
Yeah.
and so fortunately, knock on wood,
That's good.
I don't want to have to look at budget cuts. I'd rather look at, oh, we have a surplus. How
That's
do we
good.
how do we spend this?
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. And so, you mentioned success earlier, and earlier I wanted to ask that before we go to break. So, what does success look to you? Look like to you? What does success look like to you as a mayor?
That is a really good question. You know, I think about, you know, is my community happy with the things that we're doing?
Yes.
You know, are they talking positively to others about the things that are being done in our community, whether it's with redevelopment, whether it's even with snow removal, with the condition of our roads, with the response of our public safety, with our fire departments and our law enforcement, with our engineering. You know, there's so many different facets of city government. You know, are in general people just happy with the service that we're providing to them? Because at the end of the day, if your water can, you know, you turn on your water, you get hot and cold water, and you toilet flushes, and you can get to and from work and home and school, you know, that's what we're responsible for. And do you feel like you're safe in our community? Those are the things that we're responsible for as a community, as a city government. So if at the end of the day, things are good, then I think we're doing a good job.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, if college students, another career professionals is watching the show right now, what advice do you have for them in their professional life? What they should do, not what they should do, but at least from what you've learned along the years. So, what advice would you have for them?
To get involved.
Mm.
To get involved in whatever club or group or organization that you can, because you never know who you're going to meet, and you never know the connections that you're going to have, or the networking that you're going to be able to create from being involved. It also gets you outside of your own comfort zone, which I think that's important for us to become uncomfortable, because I think that's the only way we learn, is when we're kind of uncomfortable, and it forces us to ask questions. So that would be the first piece of advice, is to get involved in wherever you are at. If it's at your college, your church, the community, city government, we're always looking for people. It's really easy to go online and apply to be on a board or commission. So if anybody lives in Moorhead, we're always looking for young voices to be part of our boards and commissions. It's actually not a huge time commitment. And to seek out internships. And we are always looking for college students to intern in parts of city government, and to just make those phone calls and to not be intimidated. I ran for city government. It was intimidating. I was nervous, but I did it. And you are never going to, be able to achieve the things that you want unless you kind of go outside your comfort zone and do things that might make you nervous.
Wow, this is good. Students, if you are hearing this, watching this, go on their website and find out what is available. Yes?
Yes.
Wonderful. So when I say kindness, what does that mean to you?
Kindness?
Yes.
Meeting people where they're at and giving them grace.
Wow.
Not making assumptions.
Okay. I always follow up with this. Have had opportunities to be kind to others?
Every day.
Every day, yes. I believe it. Yes, yes. The community, I mean, I've said that many times on this show. The community is so nice to me, as someone who is was starting out very scared, even trying to go to college or trying to do certain things in the community. And throughout the years, it's really, people always make me say, like, afterwards, why was I so scared to to do this? Right? So it's almost, because you always find someone who wants to help, who wants to, see you succeed. And afterward, I'm always saying, I don't know why I was afraid to do this, afraid to try that, afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
I said that many times. Any last word, Michelle, that you want to share with the professional lunch audience?
I think just embrace each day.
Mhm.
Embrace each day. Know that your city government is always behind you, trying to do the best that we can do, and to reach out to us if you have ideas and suggestions and want to be part of it.
Yes, wonderful.
Yeah. And thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me to be part of this.
No problem. It's a pleasure to have you. I've all day today. I have been thinking about the interview, and because your experience is you have such a vast experience working, as an advocate for groups such as this is really a very, very noble thing to do. And when I ask, has you have your job give you opportunities to be kind to others? It's really, for me, it's a rhetorical question in a way, but I'm curious on on how, because I know just the nature of your work is you expressing kindness on a daily basis. So uh it's really nice to hear that, because I know that your work is making such a huge difference in the community.
I hope so.
So yes, indeed. All right. Mia Shelley, it's such a pleasure to have you today. Thank you so much
My
for this
pleasure.
conversation. I'm really glad you were able to be here today with Professional Lunch for a very special Professional Lunch episode.